Welcome to Mathenatic, where we make simple math tutorials to help you better understand mathematics. And in this video, we'll explain where the quadratic equation comes from. So let us start. Let's consider a quadratic equation in the format of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. And what we want to do is solve for x in this equation. So first, I will get rid of the a in front of the x squared. So I'll divide everywhere by a. And that leads to x squared plus b over a times x plus c over a equal to 0. Next, I will simplify this expression by moving the c over a to the right-hand side. So I'll have x squared plus b over a times x is equal to minus c over a. Now, in order for us to solve for x, we will create a trinomial by completing the square. So when we complete the square, we add the square of half the coefficient of x. So the coefficient of x is b over a. So half of b over a is b over 2a. And we'll add the square of that to both sides of the equation. So that leads to x squared plus b over a times x plus b over 2a squared, and I also add that to the right hand side of the equation to keep the equation in balance. So what I add to the left, I'll add to the right. Now on the left hand side, I have a trinomial which is known as a perfect square. So if I factorize that trinomial, both brackets would look exactly the same, so it will lead to one set of brackets squared. And an easy way to factorize that is to create the bracket. Then I have x plus b over 2a squared. So it's the first term's variable, the second term's sign in the middle. Then I ignore the second term, and I also ignore the square of the last term and simply have b over 2a. So if you multiply out this expression, it will lead you back to this trinomial. And I can also simplify the right-hand side. So it will be negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. So before I take the square root on both sides to get rid of the square, I would simplify these fractions by creating one single fraction. So that means I would have x plus b over 2a squared, and on the right hand side I'll create a common denominator of 4a squared. That means I need to multiply negative c with 4a, so I'll have negative 4ac plus b squared. Now, in order to get rid of the square, I can take the square root on both sides. So that will look like x plus b over 2a is equals to the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. But we can take a positive and a negative of that square root, because a positive and a negative value squared would lead me back to my previous expression. So now I can solve for x by taking plus b over 2a to the right hand side, and that will be negative b over 2a plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And only thing left for me to do is rewrite that square root. So I have plus minus, and I look inside the square root, and I can see that I cannot square the numerator. So I have square root of b squared minus 4ac over, then the square root of 4a squared is simply 2a. So it's over 2a. And notice that we have two sets of fractions with the same denominator. So I can rewrite that as a single fraction. So I have x equals to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over our common denominator of 2a. And that is where the quadratic formula comes from. It's simply an application of completing the square.